Hello, geeks, freaks, and all those unique. This is EmceeFrodis, and I'm here with another video. This time, instead of doing a scripted video, I thought I would answer some of the questions that I've gotten from my lovely viewers over the last couple of things that I've put up. On my video ranking the Star Trek series, David Adler asked, do you, by any chance, have a weird thing for Vulcans? No, I don't. Not at all. In my video about coping with fandom troubles, Lexi commented, it's like quitting a bad habit like smoking or drinking or anything else that requires a lifestyle change. Gosh, is there fandom rehab? As far as I know, there's no fandom rehab. Probably the best thing for that kind of situation is to find other people that have tired of the same fandom you do. Which, honestly, if you follow the instructions, not instructions, but the suggestions in that video of finding people in fandom of similar temperaments to you, most likely by the time you get tired of a fandom, other people that you know are going to be sick of that same fandom. Because if you guys are kind of on the same wavelength, you're going to get sick of things around the same time. It's funny that you should equate it with quitting a bad habit like smoking or drinking, because I've also given those up this year. And definitely quitting a fandom is not the least difficult of the three of those, at least for me. Everybody's struggles are their own. And I don't want to say it's the most difficult for me, because God, quitting smoking was really, really hard. But certainly quitting a fandom, it's very easy to backslide back into it. Which, depending on the situation, that's not a bad thing, because you're quitting a fandom mostly for your own enjoyment. But for things like Harry Potter, it's really hard for me not to want to interact with the Harry Potter fandom. And I think a lot of people are having that problem, because all of this stuff is, come out about how terrible J.K. Rowling is. Meanwhile, they come out with this trailer for like a PS5 game, which looks amazing. And I'm sorry, I can't buy that. Well, I don't have a PS5 and I have no plans to buy one anyways. But if I did have one, I wouldn't be buying the Harry Potter game, because it's just not a fandom that I want to monetarily reward. Hanging out with people from the fandom and possibly with FanWorks, I'm not sure. I'm still trying to figure out. It's honestly, with this type of thing, it's all about figuring out where exactly you're going to fall on things. And it's mutable. At the moment, what I'm feeling is not going to read the books again, because I'm just not feeling that. But I am going to interact with people that I've known in the fandom for many, many years at this point, because they're just my friends. But I'm not going to justify buying a game. That money will have gone to J.K. Rowling at some point. And I know that she is a billionaire, and my money is going to make very little difference to her. But it's the principle of the thing for me. And I'm not going to judge you if you do it, because everybody's got to have their own line. But, just for me. But it is kind of like a reframing of things, where it's like you have to think about the fact that it's like, oh, I shouldn't get excited about this coming out, because this shouldn't be something that I care about because of what horrible things she's done. So a comment on kind of an older video that I did about why Kylo Ren would be redeemed, which I did before Rise of Skywalker came out. And again, this is from Lex. She asked, or she commented, I think there's a confusion as to what redemption actually means. It's not hand-waving all of the truly horrible actions he's taken and not holding his accountable for them or making him feel the consequences, but redemption is actually tied directly to love, and love that brings forgiveness. Yeah, this is something that I think actually even still applies after The Rise of Skywalker has come out and we've seen what happened to Ben there. Where, I mean, honestly, those videos on Ben's redemption really hurt because I felt like I was kind of right in almost everything that I said, except the Ben surviving. And everything I said in the video was right, except not right. It was like right, but with very small changes in them, which is, I mean, like I knew I wasn't going to be getting it bang on, but I mean, I've spoken already on the Trash Compactor podcast, which you guys can go listen to, about my feelings on Rise of Skywalker. And I'll probably end up doing more of that eventually. But Ben's redemption, it's not about a quantifiable thing of whether or not he's done enough good things versus bad things and the weight of the things that he's done. Whether or not he deserves redemption, because it's not really about him. It's about whether or not Leia and Rey were willing to let him into their lives. And judging by the movie that we got, that's exactly what happened. They were willing to accept Ben Solo for everything that Kylo Ren had done. He just needed to accept himself. And I think that was the big thing. The thing that was keeping Ben Solo from emerging at the end of The Last Jedi was the fact that Ben didn't think that he deserved forgiveness at that time. Because, and that's probably directly tied to him killing Han. He felt that the act of killing Han was absolutely unforgivable. And so when presented with the option to redeem himself, he couldn't allow himself to accept it, no matter what these women that he loved wanted him to do, because he just couldn't forgive himself for it. And it wasn't until The Rise of Skywalker where Leia literally lays down her life so that Han can allow Ben to forgive himself. This is sounding like a much longer essay, but that's kind of just it for now. That, you know, redemption is tied to love. It is not. Ben gets to be forgiven because people need him to be, because Leia and Rey need Ben. And let's face it, like I know a lot of people pull up the whole comparing Kylo Ren to real life figures. And the thing is, redemption in movies is always much easier than it is in real life. Yes, there are things in real life that you just cannot come back from. But for our gray characters, people are going to be awful boring if we're not allowing any sort of redemption arcs. I love me a good redemption arc, which might be one of my problems with Rise of Skywalker. I love me a good redemption arc. Alicia asked, do you have any memorabilia that has a special story attached to it? Will we see it in a later video? Well, we can see it in this one. Because actually, this question was kind of the reason why I decided to make a video answering these questions, because I do have some cool memorabilia that does have a significance to me. So the first one, appropriate since I was just talking about Kylo Ren, is I have the Kylo Ren Bust, which isn't, I mean, it's a fairly standard piece of memorabilia. It's a, is it Gentle Giant or I forget who's actually coming out with the Star Wars busts right now. But it's a fairly standard piece of merchandise. But what makes it special for me is that it was one of the last presents my mom gave me. She died 3 years ago, and she had been sick before her death. And I was spending a lot of my time taking care of her. So she knew how much I liked The Force Awakens. So she went and ordered the Kylo Ren bust for me to thank me for being such a good kid. And I get this bust, and I'm like, this is a thank you for being a good kid. I really think my mom misunderstood the point of that movie. But yeah, so now every time I look at that bust, I think of my mom, and of course that's such a big thing for me. I love my mom, and I miss her every day. So I like having this nice little reminder of her. The next thing is one of my newer pieces of memorabilia, except also it's a really old piece of memorabilia. It's new to me. I just received this very recently, and it was a gift from a friend of mine. She knew how much I had gotten into Star Trek, in particular Vulcans. So she said to me, MC, I have a fanzine about Sarek that's signed by Mark Leonard. Would you like it? And I when I first saw this message, I was just like, wait, what? A fanzine signed by Mark? Yes! Yes! How can anybody turn that down? It's a fanzine signed by Mark Leonard. And Mark Leonard, for those of you who don't know, did play the role of Sarek in the original Star Trek series and The Next Generation. He passed away, I believe, in 1995-ish, the mid-90s or so. So he's long past, and this is the only way I'm ever going to get his autograph, which is, I'm not a huge autograph collector, which is going to be funny considering what I'm going to show you after this. But it's such a weird and wonderful thing to have autographed. I'm going to cover up the name because I don't know if she wants it admitted that she actually had a fanzine signed by Mark Leonard. But I think it's awesome. I have not actually had the chance to read this yet. But I do know Jean Laura. So she is quite famous in terms of Star Trek. So I'm looking forward to, being able to read that. And it's signed by Mark Leonard. It's so cool. It's the type of thing that I want to open up a museum of weird fandom stuff. And I would like that to be in there because I don't know how many people got fanzine signed. Was that like a very common thing back in the day? Like, if you did the whole fanzine thing, please tell me whether or not it was like super common for actors to sign them, because I just missed fanzines. Like, actually, when I started to get into fandom, it had moved to e-zines. Like, there was like this very brief period where instead of like websites or whatever, people did come out with what they called e-zines, which were, I don't know if they were PDFs at the time, I can't remember, but kind of that sort of thing where it was like, it was a zine that just happened to be transferred electronically. And I don't think that really caught on too much, because then we started to get fanfic archives and everything like that. But I did have a brief experience with that, which just goes to show you just how old I am, that I'm just on the cusp of fanzines. And I've gone through AO3 and FFnet and LiveJournal and mailing lists and I've seen so much in my time. But the last thing, because there's so much stuff around my room that I could show. But the last thing, which is, I think, a lot of fun, again, because it has a story attached to it, is, and again, this is another autograph. I don't particularly collect autographs. Especially, I do have some, but I kind of never got into the whole thing of let me pay a copious amount of money to meet somebody for 5 seconds. If that is your thing, like, absolutely no problem. Like, that is cool. Like, you do you. But for me, well, one, I've never had enough money to really do that. And it always felt a little hollow to me to just have like a 5-second interaction with somebody that I'm paying. Granted, I have regretted it, not doing it for certain people. Like, I had the chance to meet Carrie Fisher, didn't do it, and then she passed away. Had the chance to do it for Leonard Nimoy, then he passed away. I said to my friends, I'm going to have to make up for it by meeting both Ethan Peck and Zachary Quinto, because that's the only way it will equal like meeting Leonard Nimoy. But so what I have here is a couple of autographs, actually. So I guess it was in 2016. I went to London with a bunch of friends of mine. And we all went specifically to go see Hamlet, starring Benedict Cumberbatch. That was kind of like, that was the main purpose of the trip, but we did go out and do a lot of other things. We saw a lot of theater. I think we saw like 6 or 7 different shows. Some of us saw more than others. Some of us were there for longer. I was there for like 2 full weeks. We rented a house. It was amazing. And we saw just a bunch of different things. But the main reason was to go see Hamlet, which was fantastic. Benedict Cumberbatch was great in it. And of course, he would do stage door occasionally. Yeah, one of the girls I was staying with wanted to go do stage door with the hope of meeting Benedict Cumberbatch, and she couldn't do it alone. So everybody else was doing things, or for whatever reason couldn't go. And so she asked me, and I'm like, and at the time I was like, oh my God, this is going to be many hours. And it's kind of cold there, and there's just lots of people, and I don't know if I can deal with this. But, whatever. Like, there's always the chance. Because, I mean, like, also we didn't know that if he was doing, which nights he was doing stage door. So we waited there for many, many hours. And she and I bonded quite a bit. And we met some other really nice people. And lo and behold, Benedict Cumberbatch did do stage door that night. So I got this program from the show, Hamlet. I've got it where I'm trying to like not look away from the camera, but be able to see it. That's Benedict's autograph right there. We also have Ciarán Hinds, who some people might recognize as Mance Rayder from Game of Thrones. I don't recognize all of... I think that's Sean Brooks, who Good Omens fans will know is the mother in Good Omens, and she was Eurus Holmes in Sherlock, and she also happened to play Ophelia. I'm pretty sure I got her autograph. I can't remember, though, because it is several years ago at this point. But it was such a lovely experience. The entire trip, this 2 weeks that I got to spend with my friends, just experiencing London, and then kind of having this whole trip culminate with seeing Benedict Cumberbatch in a really great show, and then actually getting to meet him, albeit very briefly, but still, it felt more meaningful to me than it would. I know people have met him at conventions before where they've, laid down hundreds and hundreds of dollars. And still, I mean, like, if that's your thing, like, that's totally cool. Because, I mean, certainly I waited for many, many hours, and which is probably worth, like, several $100s, like, depending on, time versus money. But just kind of the entire experience just really, it meant so much to me, that I am going to treasure this absolutely forever. It's not even about the fact that I had Benedict Cumberbatch sign it. It is just a memorial of the entire experience. So those are just some of the pieces of memorabilia that I have that are kind of cool and very significant to me. I do have a lot of others that are just important to me, but actually kind of the thing is, I like unique pieces. I mean, certainly you can probably see in the background, I do have some Funko Pops. I have a lot of those, actually. They're just kind of off screen. And, I collect comics and books, and I collect a lot of different things, but the stuff that really means something to me that would totally, if we were still doing the whole Marie Kondo thing of sparking joy, like the Funkos and that kind of stuff, that stuff might go. But the stuff that I would keep and I will keep forever, and my brothers will probably have to figure out what the hell to do with when something happens to me, is my art. I love things that are more individual. The collection of fan art I have is fairly extensive. I mean, my friend Sarah's has like 700 pieces, and I can't even think of that. And I have maybe 100. But most of my room is decorated specifically in art pieces. Now, most of them are not like originals. A couple of them are, but most of them are prints. But even that, they're not a rare thing to find. They're a thing that I can really only find by buying them directly from the artist. I can't just like go on to Amazon and get them. And a lot of them, I did meet the artist who did them. Some of them are pictures that were actually commissioned specifically for me. I do have a lot of incredibly talented friends who have done work for me in the past. And I love every single piece that they've done for me. And then there's also stuff that I've done because I am an artist. And I showed last time that I did an Uhura Funko Pop. I've done a lot of custom work. Some of it I've kept, some of it I sell. But the stuff that I keep, the whole reason why I did those pieces is because they didn't make them, or because it was like something that meant that much to me that I couldn't find. Like, I have several custom Connor figures from Buffy the Vampire, from Angel, because they never made they made a baby Connor figure that came with an Angel, but they never did like teenage Connor. And since he's like my favorite character, I needed to have one. Now, in another video, maybe I'll go through like some of my art pieces, but yeah, that's the thing that is the most important to me, is my art. That's like I said in the Star Trek ranking video, the way I interact with fandom is by creating. So the things that mean the most to me are the things that I create, and the things that my friends create, and the things that people that I hope will become friends create. And finally, Alicia also asked on the ranking of Star Trek video, what's the number one thing that you think could have been handled better in the Kelvinverse besides the Batch? So that's a very interesting question. One that I won't get into all of the details on this video because I think that it's long enough to warrant its own video. And that's not to say that I don't like the Kelvinverse movies, because obviously I love them. It's the top of my list of rankings for Star Trek. But it's kind of death by a thousand cuts. I have a lot of different things that I would do to them just to kind of like tweak them a little bit. And I kind of want to sit down and watch the movies again and go through all of the changes that I want to make. But as for Benny Batch, my problem with him in the movie, my problem isn't that he is in the movie. My problem is who he plays. And this will be something that I go deeper into when I talk about Into Darkness. I had no problem with him being John Harrison. Benedict being John Harrison was fine. He acted well for the role he was playing. But then they threw Khan on top of it. And it is so problematic to have just white as milk Benedict Cumberbatch playing Khan. Now, I understand that Ricardo Montalban is not Indian. Certainly, that is something that has been talked about before. And actually, when I was thinking about the fact that Ricardo Montalban was cast as an Indian, it's like, wow, this is problematic, but certainly not as problematic as Benedict Cumberbatch being cast as an Indian. And also, a month before Space Seed came out, or maybe it was a month after, but around the same time Space Seed came out, the Monkees on the very same channel had this happen in an episode. So certainly, if you look back at things, by 1960s standards, Ricardo Montalban playing an Indian is one of the less racist things that could have happened. I'm not saying it's right, but I'm just saying in historical perspective, it could have been a lot worse. But by 2000, was it 2014 that Into Darkness came out? By the time Into Darkness came out, they knew better. We all knew better. Like, there was no reason why Benedict Cumberbatch had to play Khan. What makes it even worse is that they caused this politically incorrect nightmare. And frankly, they did not need to have Khan in that movie. Having Khan in that movie was the biggest mistake. It's not Benedict. It's the fact that Khan is in there at all. He should not have played Khan, not just because of the unfortunate implications of it, but because Khan shouldn't have been there. And that is kind of all I will say about that for now, because certainly I do have more on how the Kelvinverse movies could have been done, a little bit better. And that's on my list of things to do, because it had been before, but now that you've mentioned it, Alicia, that's something that I definitely want to move up. So right now, and I've announced this on Twitter, what I'm working on is a deep dive into Pon farr, because I don't know, Vulcans are kind of cool, I guess. And also a retrospective on Phantom of the Paradise, which is one of my favorite movies of all time, and I think particularly appropriate for a spooky October month.
And there'll be a lot more coming up. Certainly, I'm enjoying doing this, so I'm going to be putting out more. And if you want to keep up to date with what I'm doing, please subscribe. If you would like me to kind of ramble at you, uh, comment on my videos. That does help the YouTube algorithm not bury me. And also, just lets me know what people think. I need to know what people think. I'm an artist, so I'm very insecure, and I need to know that people like me. And I would love to have a conversation going. If you would like to support the channel, share the video, and also subscribe to my Patreon. The link will be over here. If you can't do a monthly thing, you can also buy me a coffee. And until next time, may the force be with you.